Tonight, Qantas engineers strike at airports around Australia as the airline vows to repair its reputation. King Charles delivers an urgent warning on climate change to Commonwealth leaders. An elderly Victorian couple killed in their bedroom by an out-of-control truck. And US prosecutors recommend the Menendez Brothers be resentenced 35 years after killing their parents. This is ABC Late News. Hello, I'm Craig Smart. First, Qantas has vowed to resurrect its tarnished brand at its annual general meeting in Hobart. While the Flying Kangaroo's share prices soared to record highs, shareholders and passengers still have questions over how the airline is run, while union members walked off the job in their pay dispute.
A broken down baggage system meant chaos for passengers at Adelaide Airport.
Baggage system is currently offline.
Worried about going through security at the moment because the lineup is huge.
You don't know if we're going to miss our flight or anything.
And there's been strike action by Qantas engineers across the country at peak travel times.
No more delays! Time for fair pay!
It's all been happening against the backdrop of the airline's annual general meeting in Hobart.
There is no pretending that last year was anything other than a very difficult year for Qantas.
Selling tickets for cancelled flights and the illegal sacking of 1,700 workers during the pandemic has hurt the airline's brand and will cost it hundreds of millions of dollars.
I can assure you that the issues that caused the difficulties and reputational damage last year have been and are being comprehensively addressed.
While the airline is determined to move on, some shareholders are keen to look back.
As I look around here, I feel the ghost of Alan Joyce in the room.
Disquiet from some shareholders about financial incentives for executives failed to lead to a spill of the entire board.
We do feel that Qantas listened to us and our concerns.
As for customers and the airline's pledge to do better,
I think they're probably on track.
I think it's got a fair way to go, really.
I fly a lot. I think they've been pretty incredible.
in a bid to restore its reputation, the airline is offering more frequent flyer seats and is upgrading its fleet. But its announcement of a $1,000 bonus for employees is unlikely to appease all workers.
Bonuses are a one-off. They don't pay the bills. They don't really lift your head above water in the cost of living crisis, which we are in the middle of.
We are looking forward for solutions that deliver improvement in pay, in conditions for our people, while ensuring that we can continue to invest.
An airline navigating a path out of troubled times. Fiona Blackwood, ABC News.
The King has issued a dire warning on climate change while opening a meeting of Commonwealth leaders in Samoa. He says warming temperatures and seas pose an existential threat to the globe. Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedjets is in Apia for the meeting.
A celebration fit for a king. The monarch and fellow Commonwealth leaders together in Samoa, united also in message about the rapidly intensifying climate threat.
Lives, livelihoods and human rights are at risk across the Commonwealth.
It is the greatest threat to the survival and security of our Pacific people.
Charles has been a long-time climate advocate, now on the throne, only slightly less forceful.
I can only offer every encouragement for action with unequivocal determination to arrest rising temperatures by cutting emissions.
And as the leaders gather, another reminder of the stakes. The United Nations warning there's a risk of a catastrophic 3 degrees of global warming by the end of this century, unless more is done to slash emissions. Australia's not immune. Its climate record has come under fire from the Pacific. But the PM says leaders understand Australia's trying to strike a balance.
They recognise that the challenge of climate change doesn't mean that you can just flick a switch and act immediately. We need to make sure that energy security is prioritised.
While future threats are dominating this CHOGM, the Commonwealth's past is also casting a shadow over the meeting, with some Caribbean and African leaders still pressing for slavery reparations. The UK's ruled that out, but Commonwealth leaders look set to endorse a final statement which acknowledges the controversy and calls for a, quote, conversation about the best way forward.
I understand from listening to people across the Commonwealth how the most painful aspects of our past continue to resonate.
The very fact that there are concerns that have arisen means that there must be conversations to be had.
A discussion unlikely to die away. Stephen Jedgetts, ABC News, Apia.
A truck has ploughed into a house in southwest Victoria, killing an elderly couple in their bedroom. The truck left the highway and skidded 200 metres through a paddock before crashing into the brick home.
A quiet morning in southwest Victoria shattered by a violent crash with fatal consequences. At 7 a.m, a tip truck heading from Port Fairy to Warrnambool veered off the highway near Tower Hill, careened through a paddock and smashed into the corner of this house, killing the home's owners in their bedroom.
And the damage and the result and the tragic loss of life that comes with having a collision with a heavy vehicle.
The married couple, 81-year-old Jim Madden and his 80-year-old wife Kamala Madden, were well known in the area.
It's a small town, everyone will be feeling it. They have a lot of relations here.
Local publican and family friend Peter Archibald says he'd known Jim Madden all of his life.
Jim had his 80th birthday here. His wife had her birthday here. They were here last Friday night for dinner.
The 70-year-old truck driver has minor injuries and was taken to Warrnambool Hospital, where he's helping police with their investigation.
Whether it's a mechanical fault with the truck, whether there's a medical episode involved, whether it's inattention, whether there's a phone use involved, all of those things will have to be looked at in the next few days.
Skid marks stretching long and straight through a paddock for about 200 metres show the path of the truck after it left the highway in a 100 km/h zone.
I can't say that they haven't washed off any speed during that 200 metres, but clearly they haven't washed off what you would expect to be all of the speed.
In the meantime, the community is grieving the loss.
It'll be a big hole to fill, a huge hole to fill.
Jean Bell, ABC News, Tower Hill.
A Perth court has heard how the parents of a malnourished girl who'd been admitted to hospital refused a feeding tube, forcing the Child Protection Department to take her under its care. The girl was about 27 kilograms when her parents agreed to take her to Perth Children's Hospital in 2021. She was nearly 17, but was described as having the body of a 10-year-old. The court heard from child protection worker Cherie Appleton, who described how the father had resisted getting a medical assessment for their girl, claiming she was eating well. She said when they refused to allow a feeding tube, they were told she was being taken into the care of the CEO of the Communities Department. The trial of the parents accused of engaging in conduct that caused their child to suffer continues next week. Advanced military technology for undersea warfare is being tested off the New South Wales coast by Australia and its AUKUS partners. For weeks, military and industry representatives have practiced deploying cutting-edge drones while sharing real-time data.
Off one of the most picturesque military bases in Australia, AUKUS partners experiment with cutting-edge maritime technology.
We're working together to create a more capable, more collaborative joint force of the future.
For weeks, 3 militaries working alongside industry have conducted a series of experiments and exercises with drones to improve undersea warfare techniques.
That allows Australia, the US and the UK to trial and test our autonomous systems in a real-world environment.
Among the homegrown innovations being examined, a large uncrewed underwater vehicle known as Speartooth.
We're trying to understand the edges of the technology and take it to failure so we can improve it and continue to evolve that technology.
These exercises are also the first time the AUKUS partners will be testing the transfer of tactical control, which will allow any of the 3 countries to take control of autonomous vessels anywhere in the world.
Virtually as soon as the AUKUS partnership was born, other nations expressed interest in collaborating in so-called Pillar 2 projects, including regional ally Japan. The ABC has revealed Japanese officials were invited as official observers for this year's event, and planning is underway for the country to participate next time. Tim Fernandez, ABC News, Jervis Bay.
Independent Senator Lydia Thorp says she was assaulted earlier this year at a public event, which left her with spinal injuries and nerve damage. In a statement, the senator said she had to have surgery and a plate inserted, which has left a scar on the front of her neck. She issued the statement in response to media questions about why she was absent on a number of parliamentary sittings this year. She says Victoria Police is investigating the assault. WA Police have made the largest seizure of 3D printed guns in the state's history after a Perth man was charged with more than 40 offences, including trafficking firearms. It's raised questions about whether regulations are keeping up with technological advancements.
21 lethal weapons, all made on a 3D printer.
These 3D printed firearms, they are not toys. They pose a serious risk to our community.
Police searched a house in Duncraig last week and found 14 homemade firearms, ammunition, drugs and more than $70,000 in cash. 2 days later, they found another 7 3D printed guns buried in bushland in Bullsbrook. A 36-year-old man has been charged with 45 drug and firearm offences.
I'm glad that we're acting to remove those from our streets. The more guns, however they're produced, that we can remove off our streets, the better.
WA recently introduced stronger gun laws, making it tougher to obtain licences and putting a cap on the number of firearms a person can own. But experts say more needs to be done to regulate the production of 3D printed weapons due to improved technology.
I do think it's kind of important to kind of update and modernise gun laws to ensure that they take into account emerging threats.
Dr Rimmer says it's particularly complex given they don't have serial numbers and are untraceable. In the meantime, authorities warn of severe penalties.
People with 3D printers are reminded of the serious criminal offences it is to download schematics of these plans and print firearms. The penalties involved are severe.
They say further charges are expected. Herlyn Call, ABC News.
On the eve of the Queensland election, the two men vying for the Sunshine State's top job are making their final pitches to voters. With an opinion poll showing the race has tightened, both leaders are talking down the prospect of minority government.
Riding the wave to election day. Stephen Miles revving through southeast Queensland in quintessential Gold Coast style.
Not my first time, no, and I do have a licence. So.
He's sporting a wide grin for someone who went into the campaign well behind.
Getting sentimental. Don't want it to be over.
Confidently blitzing electorates.
How many cooks does it take to cook this?
And reiterating his key pitch.
Who do you trust to do two things? Continue to address the cost of living and deliver a plan for our state's future.
It was an earnest David Crisafulli on the hustings.
Good work to do yet.
In a sea of red, but among friends.
Good luck for tomorrow, mate.
The federal opposition leader making the case for an LNP ally at the helm.
I think Queensland's ready for a fresh start.
David Crisafulli also greeting the governor, who he hopes to see on Monday to form government. Also hitting key seats, saying it's time for change.
Because nothing will change if we get more of the same from a fourth-term re-elected Labor government.
While the opinion polls have consistently suggested the LNP is poised for victory, this latest polling indicates the contest has tightened.
A minority government is not out of the question. Unlikely, but not out of the question.
But on election eve, the opposition leader has shifted the goalposts on his key promise on youth crime, staking his job on the numbers.
Opposition leader, your biggest campaign promise is that crime will be lower under the LNP and there'll be fewer victims year on year if you're elected. If you fail to do that, will you resign as Premier?
You bet.
But today, adding a caveat.
There's got to be fewer victims, and fewer victims means less victims per your population, clearly.
So he's chosen a different statistic, and now he's given himself 3 body lengths of wriggle room by saying that he meant per capita. He clearly didn't mean per capita.
The leaders campaigning in full throttle.
You want to go for a drive now?
On the home stretch.
Let's drive this all the way to the end.
Kate McKenna, ABC News.
The ABC invited the Premier and opposition leader to give a final pitch to our viewers. They both agreed. Here's some of what they had to say.
What I know is that I've made the most of every day I've had the chance, and so these 10 months I've worked really hard. I've aimed to deliver for Queenslanders and really to show them what kind of leader I would be if I had a term in my own right, and that's what I'm asking for tomorrow, is a mandate to keep doing the kinds of things I've been doing these last 10 months. Things like 50-cent fares, things like school lunches, things like using the coal royalties to deliver energy rebates.
We're working very, very hard. We are united, we're focused, we're disciplined. But if Queenslanders want that fresh start, they've got to vote for change. And we are trying to create history. We need to win over a dozen seats. That doesn't just happen. And I'm urging Queenslanders, if you want to stop a 4th-term re-elected Labor government that will have been in power for 14 years, if you want to stop the prospect of a minority Labor government propped up by extreme Greens at one end of the state and chaotic Qantas at the other, the only way you can do that is vote for a majority LNP government, and we are offering that hope for the future. We're offering a fresh start that this state really, really needs.
Kamala Harris has recruited some star power on the campaign trail as she courts voters in the swing state of Georgia. With just 12 days until the election, her opponent Donald Trump was also targeting battleground states. North America correspondent Barbara Miller is in Atlanta.
A former president introduces a potential future occupant of the White House.
Good evening, Georgia!
On a balmy Atlanta evening, Kamala Harris making her pitch to voters in the key swing state.
It's either Donald Trump in there stewing over his enemies list, or me working for you, checking off my to-do list.
Crowds here hoping the first female vice president of colour could be about to break another glass ceiling.
History in the making. To see someone with similar color skin like me and a woman. Our democracy is at stake.
She's actually restored my faith in politics.
And if a former president wasn't enough, how about inviting a rock star along?
I'm Bruce Springsteen, and I am here today to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for president and vice president of the United States.
Donald Trump, meanwhile, hitting Arizona and Nevada, another 2 key battlegrounds, campaigning on the issue of illegal immigration.
Immediately upon taking the oath of office, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
The former president also outlining more plans for any second term, vowing to sack Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who brought 2 criminal cases against him.
It's so easy. I would fire him within 2 seconds.
Well over 2 million people in Georgia have already cast their ballot. Early voting records are tumbling, and there's a dwindling number of people who haven't yet made up their minds. But the campaigns are pulling out all the stops.
And when we fight, we win!
As the 2024 race hits the home straight. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Atlanta, Georgia.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says it's hoped ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas could begin again in coming days. Israeli airstrikes continue in Gaza, with an attack on a school killing at least 17 people and wounding dozens more.
A race to save the wounded. The Israeli military bombed this school in the Nuseirat refugee camp, saying it housed a Hamas command centre. The hospital that received the casualties says the vast majority of the dead are children.
By God, not a single man, all children and women, and all of them in pieces.
In Gaza's north, at the centre of Israel's offensive, impossible conditions are getting even worse. One of the last remaining hospitals is now said to lack even basic supplies.
If nothing is done to respond to this situation within the next few hours, there will be a humanitarian catastrophe. Kamala Hospital will turn into a mass grave.
The situation is a byproduct of Israel's push into the Jabalia refugee camp. The UN says that operation has displaced 63,000 Palestinians.
United States and Israeli negotiators will meet in Doha in the coming days in a bid to restart ceasefire talks. The US Secretary of State is urging Hamas to return to the negotiating table. Antony Blinken might be hopeful of progress in Gaza, but ending Israel's fight with Hezbollah militants in Lebanon could be more complicated.
More strikes on Beirut. Israel's campaign against Iran-backed Hezbollah has now killed 2,500 people and displaced 1 million in Lebanon. And direct involvement from Iran itself remains a risk.
I hope Iran is getting the message very clearly from, not just from us, but from other countries, directly or indirectly, that any further attacks it engages on toward Israel really risk fundamentally its interests.
The US still talking about containing a conflict that's spread further and gone for much longer than it wanted. Eric Twarchek, ABC News.
A US judge is set to reconsider the life sentences of the Menendez brothers after a TV documentary helped a campaign from family and celebrities gain traction. The case has been back in the spotlight 35 years after the brothers were convicted of killing their parents.
It was a high-profile Hollywood double murder that captured the world's attention. 21-year-old Lyle and 19-year-old Eric Menendez were convicted of brutally shooting their own parents. They were locked up for life with no chance of parole for the 1989 crime, but now there's a possibility they could walk free.
We're going to recommend to the court that the life without the possibility of parole be removed.
The brothers' story has been back in the headlines recently with the release of a popular documentary.
Everyone asks why we killed our parents. Maybe now people can understand the truth.
There was also a fictionalised series that focused on the allegations of serious abuse inflicted by the boys' parents.
And we decided we weren't going to take that anymore. Unbelievable.
At the time, a court suggested these claims were made up and the brothers' motive was gaining access to their parents' fortunes.
And I do believe that the brothers were subjected to a tremendous amount of dysfunction in the home and molestation.
Relatives have come together to campaign for the pair's release.
Their continued incarceration serves no rehabilitative purpose. It's time to recognize the injustice they've suffered and allow them the second chance they deserve.
Celebrities and internet stars have also advocated for the brothers.
They never got a fair second trial.
A Los Angeles judge will make a final determination on the brothers' future on a date yet to be set. Isabella Higgins, ABC News.
Former nurse and convicted child serial killer Lucy Letby has been denied an appeal against her conviction for the attempted murder of a newborn baby. The 34-year-old Briton has been convicted of murdering 7 children and attempting to murder 7 more. Her lawyers sought an appeal against a further conviction for the attempted murder of an 8th child. They argued the jury members were prejudiced by media coverage of her original trial, a claim the judges disputed. Letby is serving 15 life sentences. Australia's Indigenous tourism sector offers visitors a unique window into one of the world's oldest living cultures. And there's been a surge in demand, but industry leaders say the sector is being overlooked.
From the lush landscapes of far north Queensland, the Mundraby family is making waves in the tourism industry. Their Indigenous-owned and run tour company combines storytelling, environmental education and cultural experiences.
The foundation of this is around providing employment that'll create change through opportunity.
Visitors embark on a scenic boat ride from Cairns, learning about the surrounding environment from an Indigenous guide during the short trip across the bay. On the other side, they're whisked away to a bush block for a traditional welcome and take a guided walk on traditional country. Today's contingent of North American tourists are impressed.
I learned a lot. I learned about soap. I learned about natural stuff.
The company now employs 22 people and welcomes more than 5,000 guests each year. But the journey has not been without its challenges.
When we first started off, the conversation we had with industry and potential partners is, sounds like a wonderful vision, guys. Good luck with that.
A parliamentary inquiry has recommended sweeping changes, including the establishment of a First Nations tourism body to capitalise on the growing demand for Indigenous tourism.
The new body would be separate from the existing taxpayer-funded Tourism Australia and would be modelled on the Western Australia Indigenous Tourism Operators Council, or WATOC.
Developing the Aboriginal tourism sector so it's ready for the international market.
The federal government says it's considering the report's findings. Christy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
Cricket Australia has removed David Warner's lifetime leadership ban, effective immediately. He was banned in 2018 after the Sandpaper Gate ball tampering scandal in South Africa. A three-member independent panel has unanimously decided to overturn the decision. Warner's retired from international cricket, but this would potentially allow him to captain the Sydney Thunder in the Big Bash League.
This is far bigger than a cricket captaincy role. This is leadership in a lifelong context, so any administrative role, any captaincy or coaching role in cricket. So this was about him, his daughters in particular, the legacy he wants to leave for his family.
The Matildas are looking for a fresh start in Switzerland with Saturday's friendly in Zurich. Interim coach Tom Simani says he wants to restore confidence with a win after the team flopped at the Paris Olympics. Sam Kerr isn't available, but Simani has a mix of mainstays and new talent to work with in the international friendly window. It's the first time the Matildas have ever played the Swiss, who are the world's 25th ranked side.
So that's exciting. For them, they're obviously got a major tournament coming up, so it's an important time for them. But for us, I think it's important that we focus on ourselves and getting back to our winning ways.
Taking a look around the country tomorrow, in Brisbane, a possible shower and 25. Sydney, mostly sunny, 20 the top. In Canberra, a chilly night, 1 degree. Top of 19, mostly sunny. Melbourne, a sunny day and 21. For Hobart, a cloudy day and a top of 17. For Adelaide, partly cloudy, 27. In Perth, cloud clearing and 24. And in the top end, a possible shower and 35. That's ABC Late News. I'm Craig Smart. Thanks for your company. Good night.